Be more, have more, do more. Everyone can become a champion. Welcome to the Champ Up Podcast.
All right, folks, thank you. Welcome to the Champ Up Podcast. Thank you for tuning in today's episode. Whether you're listening to this podcast or watching this video on the Champ Up YouTube channel, my goal here today is to serve you by presenting thought processes, tips, and tactics that will help you transform your life to be more, have more, do more, and just be purpose. And my guest today is an individual, a force of nature, if you will, with the expertise, the knowledge, but most importantly, from what I've learned about him thus far, is the heart to do that very thing. I'm extremely excited. I've been really excited for a long time to bring you this beautiful soul that you're about to hear from, learn from. His name is Adam Markel, and let me give you a quick bio of list of his accomplishments. Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Los Angeles Times, and Publishers Week best-selling author of the book Pivot, The Art and Science of Reinventing Your Career and Life, which, by the way, you need to get this book, my friends. I'm telling you, it will change your life. It's one of those books that you're going to need a notepad and a pen and a highlighter and a great memory. I'm going to go back and read it again. It's that powerful. Adam's a leading international keynote speaker. He has reached tens of thousands worldwide with his message of resilience as a competitive edge in the face of today's complex markets. An attorney, entrepreneur, transformational trainer, and executive mentor, Adam is a sought-after business culture catalyst who inspires, empowers, and guides organizations and individuals to create sustainable, high-performance strategies. Adam is currently the CEO of More Love Media and host of the Conscious Pivot podcast, where he shares his insights on pivoting and resilience in today's fast-paced market and interviews experts, innovators, and influencers in the areas of business and life. Adam, welcome to the Champ Up Podcast, my friend.
Oh, my goodness. Robert, thank you so much for having me. And I just want to say at the outset, I've had the good fortune to be introduced frequently and a lot of different places around the globe. That was just the beautiful introduction. Really, my heart was swelling as I was listening to you pour over me, pour that love all over me. So
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Listen, with you and I have a mutual friend, September, and I've known September for, going on 30 years now. And when she says that she trusts, she loves and admires someone, I immediately trust and admire that person as well, just because I trust her so much. So if September gives you praise, that's all I need. It's for all I'm concerned. So
Yeah.
Awesome. So before, we really get into the meat of it, I would love for myself personally, I would love for my audience to know, I want to get right into just how you're dealing with how you and your family, your wife, because you're married, you have a beautiful family, 2020. How's it been for you guys? How have you been able to just get through this just like everyone else?
Yeah. Well, it's a mixed bag. I mean, I think there's no other way for me to look back on this year and see it as anything other than a mixed bag. There've been tremendous high moments, high moments where I felt more connected to my creator, more aligned in my purpose, where I felt joy in new and even deeper ways, where my own self-awareness, my own consciousness has risen.
Yes.
Opportunities in our business that were there and others that appeared and others that we didn't even anticipate would be there. Those things showed themselves. And at the same time, like a ledger in accounting, and I'm not an accountant, I was a lawyer for 18 years, but I'm not so good with accounting.
Right.
But I understand that there's this balance or let's call it a harmony between, the pluses and the minuses, between the the credits and the debits.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's been a lot of good stuff. And that's only a small list of things I feel good about when it comes to this year. And then there's a good sized list of things that would be the negatives, the debits, the things that were challenging. I mean, namely, and firstly, the number of people who've passed away, the deaths that have occurred as a result of a pandemic.
Yes.
And every year there are people who die that we don't hear about. The flu takes people, and heart attacks, heart disease, obesity, car accidents, drunk driving accidents. I mean, you name it. There are people who die every year and are mourned, and people are in grief at the loss of somebody in their life that we don't hear about. So this is a year where we're hearing about this staggering number of people that have died as a result of this pandemic. So that's first. And the disruption that the pandemic ultimately produced in the way that we live, how we live, all that means. I mean, life as we knew it is very different.
Yes.
I don't want to say it's no more, but it's very, very different now.
Absolutely.
The experience of living in the world that we have is so different. So there's a part of me that is not only in grief and mourning the loss of people and the loss of things that will probably that have changed and may never go back to the same way they were. But I'm also mourning just the way that that sacred things that are sacred, that connection with other people, the ability to hug a person,
Mm-hmm.
how it is that we spend time in proximity to other people.
Yeah.
I'm a kind of a solitary soul.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been a public speaker for 12 years. I was a lawyer. I used to stand up in court, always kind of felt nervous in court. And I somehow ended up, which we may get into or at some point, but I pivoted out of practicing law and ended up teaching and sharing my experiences, really more than anything else, on stages around the globe in these areas of reinvention, resilience, and the like.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, even though I'm sort of an introvert, and situationally I'm an extrovert for that higher purpose. One of the things that I've always loved and I never can get enough of are just hugs, man. Just being in the presence of another human being and be able to look them in the eye and have them see me and embrace. And that's just something, man, it might take a little while, might take a minute before we can get back to feeling that that's the norm again, or that we're even open to that. So I guess the answer to your question is it's a mixed bag. Yeah. That's how I look at it.
That brings up a good question. So how should us as an individual, or maybe even as a company, a group, church, whatever, how should we go back, Adam, in your experience, how should we reflect on 2020 and all that has, brought upon us?
Well, I'm not going to suggest that we look at it through rose-colored glasses, or we look at it like Pollyanna, that everything's just good. I mean, I've left out a bunch of things. The murders of people, of innocent people in 2020. Again, that happens every year. This is nothing new. But to witness George Floyd's murder the way we did as a nation.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can't not look at those things. Yeah, you can't not acknowledge or remember them. And yet, and here's the thing, we got to move forward.
Yeah.
Like I'm in my 50s. I've had a lot of success. I've had a lot of failure. I've had, overall my life has been nothing but a blessing. Mm-hmm. And if I say, well, what's the one thing? I mean, there's a million things, that it takes to be a good father, to be a good spouse, to be a good friend, be a good leader, CEO, founder, manager. There's so many things. And yet one thing we have to do is move forward. Always.
Yes, absolutely.
You can't learn from our failings. We can't get to the place where we've applied the feedback, where we take what we found out and used it to grow, and used it as a catalyst for growth. Use that adversity as a catalyst for growth, which is really how I define resilience. You can't do that if you don't move forward. Amen. And I think that's a big issue with a lot of people in their lives, is they get stuck.
Yes.
And it's you can't, there's nothing, no judgment about it. If you lose something, like you lose your job, you lose your business, you lose somebody you love, you can get stuck quickly.
Yeah.
And so I just feel that as we bring this year to an end and we move into 2021, my advice for anybody, business or otherwise, is we've got to move forward.
Yes. Absolutely. I am 100% behind that. And one thing that I've come to realize about myself is, and I have to be careful, is, to your point, is I know personally I'm very good at seeing a situation for what it is, but immediately my mind goes to, okay, how do I move forward through this? How do I move forward? And that's tough. It's extremely tough. Taking this just this month for myself, my sister unfortunately lost her battle to cancer 2 days before her 50th birthday.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was tough. And then short time, literally about a week after that, I get tested positive for COVID. Then my wife gets tested positive for COVID. I'm just like, man. And I'm afraid to say, is there anything else in November? So I know I'm learning not to say that. But immediately in my head, Adam, I go to moving forward. And that's one of the reasons why I got into coaching, is I want to help people move forward, which is what I want us to do today. But before we do that, I would love for people.
Can I put one little sprinkle on that?
Absolutely.
Extra?
Please do.
All right. Because move forward, I think people get what that means. I want to say you've got to look forward. You have to look forward to move forward. Okay. We have to look at where we're going, where we want to go. That's how you drive a car. That's how you drive your life.
Yeah.
So yes, we have to move forward. We've got to look forward. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people in being stuck, often it's because they are looking in the rearview mirror. They're looking back.
Absolutely. I'm actually glad you said that, because that's one of the questions when you and I wrap up today, because I want to leave people very specifically how to do that. And so I absolutely want us to come back to that. I would love people to hear your story. Now, here's what I know. You were born and raised East Coast. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So obviously I read the bio, lawyer turned entrepreneur. Now on the West Coast, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct too.
Okay, awesome. Which, it's been a while since I've been in the West Coast, but I remember going to San Diego and just how gorgeous that place is. Oh my!
That's where we live.
Oh,
sorry. I always feel like I'm apologizing for that. Yeah.
Well, we had snow here in Nashville yesterday, so you could have had some of that.
I love Nashville. It was just in Memphis, right, a couple of months before the pandemic. So
awesome. Yeah. So fill us in, man. So like I say, you went from being a lawyer, and then life happened for you. You decided to pivot and move and transition. Yeah. So fill my audience in on a quick Adam story.
Why don't we go right to the belly of the beast?
Yes.
Which for me was waking up, morning, first moments of waking each morning. I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but I'll go back 12 or so years. I used to put my feet on the floor, as we're lucky enough to do, of course, if we can do that. And the first feelings that I can remember having were feelings of anxiousness, feelings of anxiety, anger often too. I would sometimes sit at the edge of the bed and just kind of grunt, make a noise or say something I probably shouldn't say on the podcast. And that was odd, man, because I married my college sweetheart. We're married 30 plus years now. We have 4 healthy kids. We had so much going for us. My life was so blessed in so many ways. And yet I put my feet on the floor and I had this sense that something was not right.
Mm-hmm.
I might even call it dread is how I would feel. And that went on for too many weeks, months, and years to count. And I didn't know really what to do about it or what to make of it. I just sort of thought, well, this is part of life. You're going through something.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, it'll pass. And I just got to grit it out. I'm a gritty guy. I'm a tenacious person, so I'll just grind more. And so if I'm working 60 hours a week, I'll work 70, I'll work 80, whatever it takes to basically figure it out. And for me at the time, I think figuring it out meant I'll just earn so much money that I'll be able to buy my way out. I'll buy my way out of what I was feeling, which was miserable. I was in misery. And it was something I tried to ignore. I mean, I just didn't do a good job of ignoring it. It was like I ended up in the emergency room on a gurney on a Saturday morning. I'm supposed to be at my son's baseball game, and I'm there instead with electrodes taped to my chest, feeling my heart pounding so hard I thought it was going to literally pop out of my chest. I'm sweating profusely. My mind is racing. I'm having thoughts like I'm dying. Crazy, like just awful thoughts. I'm not going to see my kids again ever. I can't believe, I'm sitting there thinking, I can't believe this is ending this is how it's going to go down.
Right.
My wife is standing by my bedside. She's got no color in her face. She's just like,
wow,
shocked. And then I get the verdict from the doctor, emergency room doctor comes in, speaks to me for a little while. And he says, hey, you're not having a heart attack. I know that you feel like you are, and but your EKG shows that your heart's fine. And what you're having right now, what you're experiencing is likely an anxiety attack.
Wow. And
we talked for a while and he said, so part of the reason you're feeling the way you're feeling is you haven't been sleeping well. And now it's been that way for a while. You are stressed and you're in a stressful job. We had a little chuckle about me being a lawyer and all that kind of thing. And you drink a lot of coffee. And these are lifestyle choices that you've made that have kind of led you to a place where you're feeling the way you're feeling. He says, so you got lucky today. Yeah. You might not feel lucky, but where you're sitting, you're lucky because I'm giving you good news. And I don't, in my work, I see people that don't always come out of here. Yeah. So we got out of the hospital that day and I did realize I got a reprieve. I even thank God I hadn't said, thank you, God. And I don't know, my whole life, I don't think, but I looked up at the sky and I said, thank you, God. Yeah. And I meant it. But of course I didn't know what to do. I don't know what to do with this.
Right.
What do I do with this? So as it turns out, I kind of went back to what I knew. And I think that's what a lot of us do. When we're in that, you get that inflection point, the thing that I later wrote about and called a pivot point. This was a pivotal moment for me, but yet it was only the start of it. It exposed the fact that something had to change, but I had no clue what needed to change. So fast forward, maybe it's 6 months later, and I'm back in my old habits. I'm doing the same things I was doing. I walk home. I come home late night and walk in the door. I'm dripping wet, and I see my wife by the stairs to go upstairs, go up. And I look at her, I see her eyes, and I knew instantly what was going on behind those eyes. Yeah. And she was saying, not with her, with her words, but she was saying, you did it again, man. You did it again. Yeah. You said you're going to be home for dinner. You didn't make it home for dinner. And here it is. It's past the kids' bedtime even now. You didn't even get home in time to read them a bedtime story and kiss them goodnight while they're still awake. And I walked right up to her and I said, if I keep doing what I'm doing, you're going to be a widow. Wow. And she took that in somehow. She just took it in, took a breath. I remember that. She took a deep breath.
Right.
And then she said some words that have stayed with me and will always stay with me. She said, we'll figure it out. So in that moment, and I realize this is special. Not everybody has that in their life, people that will support them the way I was being supported. But she said to me, she didn't say, hey, remember we got two houses here? You remember like the cars in the driveway that we lease or we got a payment on, right? We got 4 kids, 2 big dogs, gerbil,
right.
goldfish. You're responsible for a lot of stuff, dude.
Right.
She didn't remind me of any of that. She just said, we'll figure it out.
Wow.
And so in that moment, I didn't have to contemplate moving to Fiji or, quitting my job, even though Fiji would have been lovely. And I knew I needed to make a change to what I was doing
yes.
for a living. I didn't have to have a midlife crisis. I instead was able to we were able to plan a midlife calling. Mm. And that's what the book ultimately was. Was the child that was born out of this miserable time in my life. Mm-hmm. Was I learned how to make small changes. I learned how to pivot. I learned how to create a plan B that would sustain us and would nourish us. Forget sustain even. Would nourish me, nourish my soul, and nourish my family at the same time. And that took about 2.5 years. Didn't happen overnight. Mm-hmm. It's not I'm not a jump ship guy. I'm not a, you do this one thing and everything changes. It doesn't work like that. It's right. Like dominoes. You got to tip that first domino.
Yes.
And then sequentially what happens is you tip the next and the next and the next, because that's the way dominoes work.
Yes.
It's often just getting something started and making a small change that ultimately changes an outcome.
Yes.
You can't change the input without changing the output. So it's a butterfly effect.
Yes.
I think a lot of people, they're where they get stuck is they think that either they've got to do something drastic to pivot, or that making a small change isn't going to get the job done. Mm. And you're right. It won't get the job done if what you want is for the job to be done tomorrow.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to look at a time horizon that is sensible, and know that you can't change any one thing without seeing a change, you can't change the input and not see the output change, and you're willing to be patient enough and tenacious enough
yes.
to see it through.
Yes.
There's nobody who cannot change their circumstances profoundly without actually making any single profound change in the process.
In your experience, would you say that resilience is the key factor, if not one of the key factors, on why a lot of people do not reach their dreams, reach their goals? So we have all these grandiose plans. 2021 New Year is about to come right around the corner. So many people are going to sit down. They're going to write out their goals. I'm going to lose 20 pounds in a month. I'm going to start that business. 6 months later, none of that's happened. In your experience, why do you think that is?
Why is that? Well, I think that people are burned out, stressed out, and overwhelmed. And to answer the first part of the question, or the way that you frame the question, resilience is the thing that enables you to keep going. And it enables you to go and keep going long enough to figure stuff out. Any entrepreneur that's been in it for more than a minute knows that it's tough on a good day. But what makes it possible to succeed as an entrepreneur or as a business owner, an operator of an organization, is you've got to have longevity. You've got to continue to iterate and learn through failure, learn through trying things, testing things, learn through the process of staying in the game, what it takes to succeed in the game, what it takes to win in the game. And you can't stay in the game if you lack resilience.
Yes.
So it's the lack of resilience that ultimately is the cause of the quitting. Like you could say, as many have said before, that a person doesn't succeed because at some point they quit. But I look for the first domino often. And to me, that first domino is they are not set up as resiliently as they can be. And therefore, when they are exhausted and burned out and overwhelmed, they naturally quit. I mean, you can make anybody quit. I just had a guy on our podcast who was a 26-year veteran of the Navy SEALs. And he told me all about people who quit. And these are the highest performing folks you could ever meet.
Yes.
Physically, but not necessarily mentally.
Yes. Absolutely.
And so, you can make anybody quit something. You give them enough, you pile enough on them. There's almost no human that you could possibly imagine that you couldn't get to quit.
Yeah. That's
but resilience is that answer to it.
That's good. Your book, Pivot, broken up into two parts: clarity. Make sure I get this correct. Clarity and creating your pivot behaviors. Yeah. I want to first talk about
it's beliefs and behaviors.
Beliefs and behaviors.
Yes.
Okay. Again, going into 2021, if you had an individual find you, or let me ask it this way. Again, going back to why a lot of us don't reach the success that we so desperately want. I believe, and this book kind of confirmed it for me, but I'd love to get your thoughts, is one of the reasons why, because we don't have a clear vision of where we're going. I would love for you to expound on that.
Well, I mean, there's a great lyric. I think it was George Harrison that said that if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. I just love that.
Yes, sir. I love that.
Like marinate on that one, right?
Right. So
having a clear vision is incredibly important. And that's both short-term and long-term vision. So typically when we work with people, as I said, I'm a keynote speaker, or you said it, I speak around the world. We are involved with organizations at an organizational level, whether it's founders, early startups, or even much more mature Fortune 50 companies. And we go in to help them to develop their resilience. A part of what we are looking for is, what is their vision? Because again, if you don't have a vision for the future, research the kind of case studies that go back to the 60s and talk about learned helplessness, where people, when they don't have vision, they feel hopeless. They feel helpless in many ways. And when you have a vision, and when you can track to that vision, then there's always the sense that you can make or create a solution to even the biggest challenges. But more often than not, it's the little challenges that, so redundantly small challenge that wears a person down.
Yes.
And so I like to think of those kinds of things as like dirt on a windshield. And when you've got that dirt on your windshield in your car, you realize if you keep the dirt on your windshield and you don't use the wiper, you're going to be dangerous soon. Like unless you're standing still,
right?
In a parking spot,
right?
And you drive with a dirty windshield, you're dangerous. So what ends up happening when people have all that dirt on their windshields, and often the dirt is a number of things, including their current belief systems, the belief systems that they developed when they were quite young. And oftentimes they're unaware that those belief systems are like the operating system for them, the way that they make meaning of things, how they concise. Like one person looks at their failing in a situation and goes, "Oh yeah, what's interesting about that is I just figured out a way I just figured out 10 ways this doesn't work."
Yes.
Like Edison, I figured out 999 ways not to make a light bulb, right?
Right,
right. So that's one belief system. You get another person who looks at that failing or that series of failings, goes, "I'm a loser.
Yeah. I
don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm playing at." It's just like my mom said, you should be, and on and on and on. And it was two identical failures, but two very different belief systems about what it means.
Yeah.
And so those things are like dirt on the windshield. And when a person's got enough dirt on their windshield, which a lot of people do, they tend to drive slowly.
Yes.
So some of them are stuck. Some of them are just sitting on the side of the road stuck. Often it's just they're driving slowly.
Yes.
Whereas somebody that has a clean, clear windshield can see, feet, yards, miles ahead.
Yes.
They can drive quickly.
Yeah.
They do drive quickly.
Absolutely. That's good stuff, people. That's good stuff. The second part talks about behaviors. I was working out with a trainer once, and he said to me, he asked me a question. He said, Robert, you do great in the gym. You love the crazy workouts. I try my best to hurt you, and you just ask for more. I'm just built that way. I don't know why. But then he asked me a question that just, Adam, it hit me right in my chest. He goes, Robert, do your behaviors outside the gym match the lifestyle you want? And I was like, ooh, you got me on that one. You absolutely got me on that one. So behaviors, we talked about gaining clarity. If you can't see, you don't know where you're going. But behaviors have to come into that. Talk to us about behaviors in matching with your clarity.
Yeah. I think what we said earlier is really meaningful for this point, which is that often we see a disconnect between the things we say we want and the things we do.
Yes, sir.
And I know for me, that was reflected when I would say to my wife in the morning, I'll see you for dinner. I'll be home for dinner. I can't wait to see you guys and have dinner together. And 4:00 in the afternoon would come and I would start to get productive. So things I'd put off that I could have done in the morning, difficult things that I needed to wrap my arms around, whether it was to write a brief or it was to write a contract or something, I would start to do at 4:00 in the afternoon. And I would get really good at getting productive at 4:00 in the afternoon.
Right.
And by 6:00 in the afternoon, I was humming and producing.
Yeah.
Doing things that were going to be, good for money, good for business, good for my client relationships, all that kind of stuff. So getting home for 6:30 at dinner was never going to happen when that was my habit.
Yeah.
That was my ritual.
Yes.
And we ritualize to habitualize. So, the things that we make sort of the sacred cows in our life, the things that are things we do repeatedly become those habits. And there was a complete disconnect between the words that were coming out of my mouth and the actions that I was taking later in the same day, even.
Yes.
Maybe even an hour later. Because an hour after I said that, if I were in the office and I was cleaning my desk or I was answering back some calls that weren't important and urgent, let's say, and I was putting off doing the more difficult work for that when I was warmed up, when I felt like I was ready to do it.
Yeah.
But that was only going to perpetuate me being a liar again. I was going to get home at 8:00 that night and walk in the door and have missed dinner, still be able to kiss the kids goodnight and all that kind of thing. But I will have broken my word yet again. Here I'm a lawyer and I'm just breaking my word day after day.
Yeah.
And after a while, it just sort of, it wears at our soul. And I think people, when you think about your behaviors, and I think that trainers pointed this out to you, is so important that when your behaviors are not a match for the words that come out of your mouth or the thoughts that you think, the things that are important to you, but your behaviors don't match those thoughts, you've got something to put your attention to. Now, I know as part of our work in the area of resilience, we prepare a resilience assessment. We have a tool that we share with individuals and with organizations to help them to figure out where it is that they might be lacking in resilience, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And there's a question that's part of that assessment that's all about what you and I are discussing now.
Okay.
This misalignment between the things that we say are important to us and the things we actually are doing in our life.
Yes.
And so if it's okay, I'll give you the link right now.
Yes, we'll love it.
Anybody can use this link to get their results. It's 3 minutes. It's 16 questions. It takes about 3 to 4 minutes most to answer these questions. So it's your.resilienceculture.com. Your.resilience with a CE, culture.com. 16 questions, 3 minutes, and you're going to find out not just what your score is, but what does it mean and what can you do about it? Because again, if your beliefs are out of alignment with your actions, if your words are out of alignment with your actions, we all get that doesn't just make us a hypocrite. It actually makes us unproductive. It depletes us. It, like I say, it wears at your soul. And that depletion, that exhaustion, that overwhelm, those things that we feel, they don't allow us to be resilient. They don't allow us to be at our best. Like life and business and all these things are challenging enough by themselves. You put into the mix the unexpected, the death of someone, or the loss of a client, or a pandemic that comes out of nowhere. I mean, political unrest, all these things. You go, so what was a difficult sport to begin with just got that much more difficult.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, how are you showing up in those moments? Like, are you able to show up and seize the opportunities, to see first and then seize opportunities that exist when other people are running on fear, are being driven by their fear?
Yes.
That's why I say it was a mixed bag this year, because there were opportunities to grow and develop and serve more people and earn more money and create a new vision or a modified vision for the future of your business going 2021 and beyond. And a lot of people were able to do that. And there were even more number of people, I think, that were unable to do that.
Yeah.
And got stuck in that and caught in that whirlpool of depleting mindset.
Yes.
And sort of the degradation that comes from living in anxiety or living in fear. So your behaviors are very much an important thing as a talisman of what you truly believe. Not what you say you believe, but what you truly believe, because your actions will be the thing that tells the story.
Absolutely.
So if you want to change those behaviors, I'm not saying you have to be stuck with it, that you got to go, oh, well, this is how I am.
Yeah.
I just don't keep my word, or I get productive at 4:00. And so I can't be home at dinner.
Yes.
That's not the way this works. And it can work that way, of course, but the other way it can work is that you make small changes, which is what we talked about earlier.
Absolutely.
And to me, that's the one true, I don't even want to call it a solution or a sort of an anecdote or an antidote, but it just works. And you only know that when you do it yourself consistently, that when you commit to making incremental progress, commit to small changes, what you see over time is that hockey stick. You see the compound effect of making small changes. And that's how you develop new rituals.
Yes.
That's how you replace those behaviors with behaviors that more align with what you truly want to believe or what you really do believe.
Yes.
But that requires consciousness. It requires a commitment to making a small change. So when I was miserable as a lawyer, I could have just quit. But who knows what my world would have looked like if I just quit.
Right.
And I wasn't prepared to walk away from my clients or walk away from responsibilities. I knew I needed to get out, but I needed to get out in a way that was going to make sense long term.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
People listening to this, you got to think long term. It's back to, Robert, what you said earlier about vision. You got to be able to think short term and long term when making decisions. Absolutely. And to the extent that you can't see, out of the windshield, you got to be engaged in process and with people, mentors and others that can help you to clear the windshield. Somebody like yourself, Robert, to be coached by someone that can reflect, true information to a person, give them real feedback.
Yes.
That can clean the windshield.
Yes.
Is so vital.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, if you don't go back and rewind the last 5 minutes, I don't know what's wrong with you, because he just dropped nuggets in there. And you mentioned one of my favorite things I love to talk about, to coach about, write about, even dream about in a strange way, and that's fear. In fact, in the book, the quote you said, "At the heart of our intangible pivot fear is one fear, is that we will not be good enough." How do we get past and overcome that? You had mentioned, which I 100% agree with, just little increments at a time. But there are a lot of individuals out there just dealing with fear, and it's keeping us back from our purpose. How do we deal with that fear?
Well, I mean, it is a thing that is individualized.
Yes.
Everybody, in the book, I kind of identify these 5 fear stories that we often are able to relate to. But everybody's fear is different, and yet it feels the same. That's the funny part about it, or the not so funny part about it. Pain is a good one too, right? Pain, you can't compare pain, because pain is pain. Mental or physical pain. If you're in pain, you're in pain.
Yes.
There's no comparing it.
Yes.
And fear feels the way it does, regardless of the reason for the fear. So you can't compare it. You can't say, something you're afraid of is not something I'm afraid of. Something I'm afraid of is something you just look at and go, "Oh, that's easy. That's no issue."
Right.
What are you thought? What are you fretting about? Right.
Yeah.
So it's an individualized thing. And to me, fear is a bluffer. Fear is a bully. Fear is something that exists in the absence of love. So if you want to me, it's not a hack. It's just something that in the moment that you feel fear and it's real, you don't ignore it. You don't say it's not here, or that it's something it's not. You just have to recognize that fear is there because love is not.
That's powerful. Oh, I hope people hear that. Fear is the absence of love. That is strong. That's good stuff. That is really great stuff right there. That one hit me. that one hit me right there. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm a big individual, Adam. Well, I'm learning to. I've always been a morning person. Just my nature. My mom is as well. She worked for the state of Tennessee at the women's prison for over 30 years. So she's used to getting up 4 or 5 in the morning. Still does after many years of retirement. I'm an early riser.
Yeah.
And I mention that because I'm a huge believer in morning rituals. I'm a huge believer in earning the first part of your day. Yeah. And I bring that up because in a recent podcast episode of yours, you were having a great discussion with Mark Victor Hansen and his wife, Crystal. For those that I don't know why you would not know his name, but he is the author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. Powerful interview. Definitely people should check that interview out. Did you talk about morning rituals and how some years ago you started, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you started asking yourself different questions in the morning. Talk to us about morning rituals, asking those questions when you first wake. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was so fascinating to me that ultimately, for me, this became interesting enough to do more than a podcast on. I gave a TED Talk in 2018 on this topic.
Yes. Of
one particular ritual that became a lifesaver for me and still is. I mean, to me, this is still the life preserver, the buoy that I'm able to hold on to when I feel fear, doubt, or worry, as we do.
Yes.
And that, the conversation on the Conscious Pivot podcast with Mark and Crystal was about the fact that rituals are so important, that we've got to be thinking in terms of what are we doing on a ritual basis, because ultimately that's the quality of our life. It really is equal to the quality of the things that we ritualize, the things that we make so important that we consciously do them, and we do them repeatedly. So I do one thing in particular that's a part of a longer morning routine, or a morning ritual. And I do it when I wake. And it's actually, interestingly enough, for me, it was interesting enough to want to write a book about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And not just one book, actually. As it turns out, it's a book and a workbook. And so I just got this in the mail a couple of days ago, because it's now in pre-order and will be officially on the shelves in bookstores around the world on the 1st of January. But you're the first person to see this.
Exclusivity, baby. I love it.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
This is the I Love My Life Challenge workbook. And folks that want to find out more about it can go to just go to ilovemylifechallenge.com, ilovemylifechallenge.com to find out more. But it's a 28-day interactive workbook on how to create the kinds of rituals that ultimately become habits.
That's awesome.
And that's really, when I said earlier that I used to begin the day with that feeling of anxiety, even the sense of dread, that was like you said earlier. I mean, that literally was setting the compass for my day.
Yes. Oh man, yes.
I mean, that's how it would go.
Yes.
I would be anxious that day. I would be agitated that day. I would be angry that day. I mean, that's the way it went. I was a lawyer. I was a litigation attorney. So I actually had a pretty good job for that. You know, I could be as angry as I wanted to be, and I got paid for it too.
Right.
So, now what I do is very different in the morning. It's 3 steps, really. There's 3 parts. So first part is I wake up, and know that sounds like, okay, what's with that?
Right.
I mean, we all do that. Yeah. And Robert, you woke up this morning, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you went to bed last night, did you get a contract? Was it written in stone or on paper that you'd wake up today?
Dear God, no.
No. Me neither. Yeah, I didn't get that contract, and I was a lawyer, man. So I got to check, legally.
Right.
And I haven't met anybody yet that has a contract for that. So when I wake up, where I realize I have been given another day, I feel that for a moment. What does that mean? It means somebody went to bed when I went to bed last night, and they didn't wake up. It means as I'm taking a breath in this moment, that there are people who are taking their very last breath in this moment.
Yeah.
And then it transforms right there instantly. I'm getting, I transformed in this moment now, because it makes that moment holy. It makes that moment sacred.
Yeah.
It's not just any old moment in your life. Yeah. And that's the first moment of waking. Yeah. So I get to be holy to start. I get to create something sacred for the day at the very beginning, at the jump. My grandmother used to say, leave the house on the right foot. I leave the bed on the right foot. I don't want to leave the bed on the wrong foot the way I used to for so many years.
Yeah.
So I feel gratitude in that moment. That's the second part. I just allow my the horse is now being led. It's just so easy. I just go right down that beautiful trail of gratitude. And I think about what I'm grateful for in the moment, for as long as I feel like thinking about it. I put my feet on the floor and I say, I love my life. Those 4 simple words. Not easy to love your life in the middle of a pandemic sometimes.
Yeah, right.
Or in the middle of a divorce, or in the middle of cancer, or anything that might be going on. And yet that's the through line of the book. It's the through line of that TED Talk, is the simple question, what would it be like if you would love your life no matter what? And when you learn to love your life no matter what, you are resilient.
That's good. That is good. It reminds me, listening to you talk, I'm actually, it took me back to my sister who, as you and I were talking before we got started, passed away after a very brave fight with cancer. But the one thing, and I spoke about this about her memorial, is I'm really proud because even in the midst of such pain that even to this day, I'm not really sure I'm 100% aware of is my sister had a smile. If you ask anyone that knew her, she had a smile that I could promise you that would light up the room. I don't care what mood you were in. And even in her last days, and we didn't get to see her a lot because of whole COVID restrictions and everything. She fought with as you mentioned, just being grateful, for the life that she did have, and it made me ask myself a question at her funeral, and it's the same question that my dad passed away last year, and it's the same question, which means I need to answer. I need to respond, and that is, Robert, are you living up to your full potential? Are you grateful for what you have? And in fact, I just recently did a podcast, or will do a podcast about that. No, I did a podcast about that, excuse me. And I asked people to ask themselves that question. Are you waking up every day grateful? Are you living your full potential? And actually, it leads me right up into, and I want to respect your time and kind of come to a close here, but we're going into 2021. It's a new year. I think it's I've always thought it's a great opportunity to take accounting of our life. Again, based on this past year, your experience, how would you coach and advise people going into this new year?
You have to develop your resilience before you need it. You develop your resilience now, not because we're in the middle of a challenge, but because this is not the last challenge that any of us will face.
Oh, amen. Amen. Absolutely. And Adam, I'm glad you said that, because the thing that concerns me, honestly, between me, you, and the fence post, is my concern is that people think January 1st, 2021 is going to come around and all of a sudden life's just going to get 100% better. And I want people to understand that it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. And you talking about resilience is absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. So I really do appreciate that. I want to wrap up with this way. You had mentioned you got a new book and manual coming out. So looking forward to that. By the way, we're going to make sure we include all the information about how to reach Adam in the show notes and everything. Any other new projects or anything you're working on that you can share with my audience that we're allowed to know right now?
Well, folks can go to adammarkel.com. We have as you said, robust show podcast and people that are from really diverse backgrounds. So that is just, we're working on that a lot. And so there's really fresh new content all the time there.
Yes.
We do a lot of virtual trainings. We're doing virtual workshops for organizations, large and small. As I said, anything from a startup to Fortune 50. And we do speaker training work. So
yes,
on the website, you can explore what that looks like. So if you're the kind of person that's ever had it on your bucket list to be a TEDx speaker or a keynote speaker, and want to pivot into that work slowly over time, or want to roll up your sleeves and start right away, then we support folks in that area. And all those things can be accessed from the Adam Markel site. Obviously, if you are the kind of person that resonates with that message about how you develop resilience, take the resilience assessment we gave earlier, your.resilienceculture.com, to get your free assessment and get the resources. And there's no strings attached to that. So it's our gift. And the book, the I Love My Life Challenge, is in pre-order right now. So
awesome. Okay.
Big launch party at the beginning of January. You can go to the ilovemylifechallenge.com site and find out more about that. But the workbook is, we're going to start that 28-day challenge in January, get the year off to the right foot. And I agree with you, Robert. Just because we changed the calendar year and we figuratively are sort of turning a page, putting 1 year behind us, starting a new one, I think there's something that is, there's a ritual to that. Yes. There's an energy about it that people, I think is a positive thing. People recognize, it's a clean kind of a end of one thing and a beginning of another.
Yes.
But it's also what you said, which is that those things that we want to change don't change magically overnight.
Nope.
and so we've got to take those small steps, get people around us that are willing to tell us the truth and be truthful with ourselves.
Yes,
Then I think
absolutely.
we go forward. And again, look forward and go forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Adam, my friend, I thank you so very much. Today has selfishly just been a blessing for me. I can't wait to go back and watch this and listen to it again. I'm a big note taker anyway, so I'm gonna get my pen ready. But like I said, thank you so much. We really appreciate all your heart, your knowledge, your wisdom, and just your love. You're just genuine. I told you, my friend, I was in love with you from the day one I met you. So I really do appreciate it.
What an honor. Thank you, Robert. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And my friends, thank you again for tuning in to the podcast. Share this. This has been a game changer and can be a game changer for a lot of people. My friends, so much wisdom. Get the book. You absolutely, I'm telling you, Adam didn't pay me to say this. Get the book. I promise you, it will absolutely change your life. That is my word. That is my word. That is my promise. So thank you again for tuning into the Champo Podcast. See you soon.